I see the thing in the scripture. Edie already read our scripture very beautifully. We won't read it a second time. I apologize for that typo. Friends, Lent is considered a dour season. It is associated with longing and with depriving ourselves of things. It's associated with preparation for death. And I think we get a little too hung up on those deadly, serious feelings about Lent. I believe the important thing about this season is that it makes us a little uncomfortable. It's not about denying ourselves things. It's about encountering what we truly desire. It's about encountering our lives in a way that we usually don't, because it can be uncomfortable. Silence can be uncomfortable. Slowness can be uncomfortable. Hunger. Hunger can be very uncomfortable. And this is a season where we ask you, we invite you, we give you many different ways to sit a little uncomfortably so that we can start learning new things about how God is at work in our lives. The first time I ever was by myself with a newborn baby, I thought it was really great. I saw this cute little baby boy, and his eyes were huge, and he was looking all around, and he would giggle at things, and I would wonder what he's giggling about. And then out of nowhere, he started to go, and I said, "Oh dear, I broke the baby." And when I was holding this screaming little breathing siren in my arms, all I could think of was, make the screaming stop! Make it stop! Ah, make it stop! And the more I panicked, the louder he screamed. Now, it was absurd, of course, because it's not like I didn't have instructions. His parents told me before they left he might cry. If he cries, he's either hungry or he needs his diaper changed. It'll be fine. But when I was actually encountered with the crying, not just uncomfortable, horrifying. It was terrible. For some reason, we forget that as we get older, we're still the same human beings we were when we were tiny. We know that if a baby is crying, as Emily reminded me earlier this week, there's only a small handful of things that are making it cry. Feed it, check the diaper, cuddle it. It's going to be okay. For some reason, the older we get, the easier it is to forget that we are still human beings with really strong needs, who feel uncomfortable from time to time, but it gets less and less okay to scream about it. For instance, we know that children cannot learn unless they have food in their belly. It's why we engage with programs like End 68 Hours of Hunger, right? Because we know for a fact that if children who depend on school meals go hungry between lunch on Friday and breakfast on Monday, then they show up to school unable to learn, literally unable to take in any new information that the teachers are trying to give them. And some of these kids will act out. Some of these kids will go nuts because they have this deep craving ache in their belly. It's not anything they are choosing to do. It's something that's happening. And so we make room for that. And as a church and as a community, we support programs like End 68 Hours of Hunger to make sure that kids can show up on Monday ready to learn and not focused on their hunger. But the older people get, the less likely we are to provide for this kind of patience and understanding. If you see a teenager in a coffee shop who starts screaming, "I'm hungry, nah!" you would raise an eyebrow, and you would question that child's parents, and you would mutter something under your breath about, "Get a hold of yourself, kid." Now imagine seeing somebody in their mid-50s doing that same thing. You don't even talk to that person. You would say, "That guy has issues," and you would calmly back away. Our ache, our need, our hunger, it does not go away as we age. It maybe gets more complex, but it doesn't disappear. So why is it that we don't provide this understanding that people have needs, that people are crying out to be heard, to be seen, to have their needs satisfied? What prevents us from doing that? So today, and for the next several weeks here in this church, we are asking a very countercultural question of each and every one of you. What do you need? What need in your life needs to be satisfied? What do you need? Many of us have maybe never been asked that question since we were kids. It's not a question you get asked. Rarely are we asked, "What do you need?" Often we are told, "Here's what you need," and it can be yours for the price of $9.99. For just the price of a coffee a day, you can be satisfied in your life. Buy this thingamajig. We're sold things that we need all the time. Rarely are you asked, "What do you need?" So we'll ask it here. What do you need? In the December 14th edition of the New Yorker magazine, a writer named, I hope I'm saying her name right, Gia Tolentino, she wrote this, and it has stuck with me ever since. Our ability to change things is not increasing at the same rate as our ability to know about them. Our ability to change things is not increasing at the same rate as our ability to know about them. So take the issue of hunger. Hunger as a world problem. There's an organization called Action Against Hunger, and it informs us that 1 in 8 human beings do not have enough food to eat. 34 million children around the globe suffer from malnutrition, a disease that this organization reminds us is both preventable and treatable. And yet 1 million children die of this disease every year. We know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We know this the same way that we know to check a baby's diaper when he or she is crying. We know this. And yet the problem persists. The hunger continues to grow. Because our ability to change things cannot keep pace with our ability to find out about them. If our Lenten journey teaches us anything, it's that we're asking the question in the wrong way. It's not, "Let me find out about a problem so I can fix it." It's starting with your own need, your own desire, and leading from there. Your desire, your hunger sets the agenda for your life. It sets the agenda for how the world is organized. By knowing what you need, you are intentionally opening yourself to satisfying the needs of others. We don't need to look any further than the story of Jesus. Jesus hears that he is God's beloved with whom God is well pleased, and it drives him directly out into the wilderness, where he sits for 40 days and 40 nights wrestling with what this means for him. How can I live in this world knowing that I am God's beloved child? It takes 40 days and 40 nights, but finally Jesus gets hungry. Now, when we hear this story, we often think of Jesus as being on death's door, right? He hasn't eaten in a month. We picture him as being maybe a little skinnier than usual, a little worn down, just grasping, desperate for anything to eat. We picture Jesus as starving. But he's not. The text doesn't say Jesus was starving. It says Jesus was hungry. We can't think of it as Jesus was on death's door and that's why it was so easy for the devil to tempt him. That's misunderstanding the story. What the story says is after 40 days and 40 nights, Jesus was hungry, like a fighter. He had a fire in his belly and he was ready to encounter the world as God's beloved child and stop at nothing to live that way in the world. His discomfort led to hunger, and his hunger led to action. So friends, when I ask, what do you need? It's not a selfish question. It's the essential question. What do you need? What would satisfy you? However we answer that question is how God is calling us to serve the world. So friends, over the next several weeks, get uncomfortable. Challenge yourself to sit with discomfort and ask yourself, what do I need? What would satisfy me? And that's how God is calling you to serve the world.